This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not therapy or clinical treatment and does not create a therapist-client relationship. If you are in need of mental health support, please consult a licensed professional. The views expressed by guests are their own and may not reflect those of Fredrick Bush or OBBM. Participation in any discussion does not replace professional medical or psychological advice. Listener discretion is advised for emotionally sensitive topics.
Welcome to On Being Black Men, a blueprint for power and purpose with Fredrick Bush. This is a space for truth, healing, and forward motion for Black men and the people who love them, bringing together real voices from the community, brothers, fathers, thinkers, artists, and everyday people, sharing honest conversations about manhood, mental health, relationships, legacy, and what it means to carry both history and hope. We're not here to fix, we're here to build. From generational trauma to emotional growth, each episode offers reflection, perspective, and a call to reclaim power on our own terms. Whether you're navigating struggle or stepping into the unknown, you're not alone. This is for men. This is about men. This is On Being Black Men.
Welcome to the first episode of On Being Black Men. I am Fredrick Bush. I'm a licensed clinical social worker here in New York, which means I'm basically a therapist. So hopefully this will be the beginning of some powerful conversations that we can have with different people. Hopefully it'll be more than just a podcast and more of a living conversation on power and purpose, like the tagline says, a blueprint for those types of things to move forward. I'm very honored for this first episode to have Dr. Kwame Scruggs, who his life work has embodied the type of thing that we're kind of paying tribute to here at On Being Black Men. So let's begin. Let's just start and talk. Today's guest, as I said, is Dr. Kwame Scruggs. He's a visionary educator. He's a mythologist. He's the founder of Alchemy, an award-winning organization transforming the lives of Black youth. He was born in Hart Time, Mississippi. Sorry, no, he was born in Akron, Ohio. And he earned his PhD in mythological studies, and he has an emphasis in depth psychology. He draws from African life cycle traditions and Jungian mythology, and he spent decades helping our young Black men become heroes of their own story. He's won a National Arts and Humanities Award presented by Michelle Obama. Boy, I missed that one. He's also a fellow at the Joseph Campbell Foundation. And he's just a wonderful person. He's a mentor, a healer, a guide, Dr. Kwame Scruggs. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me, brother. Appreciate it.
Well, as I said before, the first thing our audience should know is the first thing about Dr. Kwame Scruggs is don't call him doctor. He's Kwame. Tell us a little bit about that.
That originated. It took me 15 years to get my bachelor's degree because I was going to school, working in the evening, and then went back to school to get the master's. Blah blah blah. And I just remember meeting a older Black gentleman through my father, and I, called him by his last name, Mister So and So, and he said, "Doctor." Well, I'll say Jones, Mister Jones. He said, "Doctor Jones," and I just okay, and
Mm,
so so then I said, "Okay, doc, pleasure to meet you, Doctor Jones, a black man." And then I remember, I can't remember the time period elapsed. I remember this meeting this uh, black woman, and I was in the street, and I said, how you doing, Mrs. Smith?" And she said, "Dr. Smith." And so I said, "Okay,
mm,
Dr. Smith." And as black people, we are already so divided. We are already so divided.
mm,
And to me, that just this is just me. It
mm.
just puts even more division between us. So
Yeah,
that's why I don't like being called doctor.
yeah. I
Now,
had
now,
the
now, now, with that said, I'm sorry, Frederick. Now, with that said,
Mhm.
uh, it has its place. Okay,
Yes,
so
yes,
yeah,
I would
yeah,
agree with that.
so
I would
yeah,
agree with
because
you. It does have its
normally I
place,
don't
and
have like yes, yeah,
you work very hard to get there.
yeah,
I mean,
yes,
so yeah.
yeah.
But I had the same kind of experience with two supervisors when I was under supervision. Dr. Muriel Demon, she would, tell me, "Yeah, you're my supervisee. We're colleagues." And
Mhm.
then Dr. Erwin Hirsch, who I'm still in contact with, our running joke is when I text him, "Hey, Dr. Hirsch," and then I say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Erwin," and then he texts back whatever he has to say. Yes, Erwin,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it really showed their humility because they were they are very very high end people in their own right. They write books. They're part of the conversation around psychoanalytic thought, that type of thing. So, um, you know,
Frederick. I'm sorry, before to leave that, and I was just thinking about the contradiction because normally I don't even have PhD after my name, but I did this other I was on the part of this documentary, and I just saw they didn't have PhD after it, and it gives you credibility. But normally I don't even have that after my name. Okay, brother, go ahead.
yeah. Well, see, you're good because I would.
Okay.
I mean, the PhD says doctor, doesn't it? I mean, you don't have to
Yeah,
say
yeah,
it. It's
yeah,
and I
yeah,
find it interesting when people go doctor their name and then put PhD when they
yeah,
could just do their name and PhD. It's all it's like
yeah,
saying doctor.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay.
but I appreciate and I appreciate what you're saying. Because I've run into that also with black uh, professionals who are they feel good about what they've accomplished, but it becomes almost like a distancing, which is exactly kind of what we need to kind of reverse. We're trying to become more together.
Yes.
And even in my own work with ICBM, we talk a lot about loneliness amongst black men in particular. So with you have so many things and initiatives that you're working on. I know I gave you a set of questions, but um, the most kind of interesting question for me for right now is um, I ask a lot of men, well, what made you a man?
Mm. Ooh.
I always
Mm.
get that. I always get that kind of a response.
Wow. Wow. And I guess that's first off, what's your operational definition of man? Being a
Yeah.
man.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
that's the
Yeah.
first thing. So you
Yeah.
want I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but you got an operational definition of a man, or you just want me to go for it?
I do have one. I
Okay.
borrowed it from someone,
Okay.
but
All
I
right.
think it works to broaden up the spectrum of what
Okay.
men might think being a man is. So I've borrowed it, and I think it works. I use it
Okay.
at least in my
Okay.
workshops.
Great. Great.
It's a tough question, I you know because I follow it up is, well, when did you become one?
Mm. Mm.
but since you deal a lot with, African rituals, African rites, this is one of the
Mhm.
things that, might help young men move into the sphere of manhood. So now, yeah, what are your thoughts?
Okay. Um, Here again, it's unicorn how we defining a man. Off the top of my head, being a man is providing. It's providing and being true to your word. Being true to your word and having a having an objective and meeting that objective that makes the world a better place. All
Hmm.
right. Treating people with respect. That's off the top of my head. And
Okay,
and
so we
and
have,
a model. A man is a model for boys to become a man. Here again, that's
mhm.
off the top of my head, Frederick.
Yeah,
Okay, but
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
honesty,
well,
honesty, honesty, truthfulness, being true to your
yeah.
word.
Well, within that, you've struck on, of course, the intrinsic parts of honesty, but you're also striking on empathy.
Very
To
much
think of
so.
others, that type of thing. Provider often comes up with black men.
hmm
It's, to be a provider. And even that would say, well, how are you doing that? So the thing the kind of definition I borrowed from Richard Reeves, and he borrowed it from some other uh, um, researcher, but it seems to encapsulate, yes, you are a provider, but are you just a provider of material goods?
No, no,
You know,
no, no,
so
no.
you could be the provider of love, of this empathy, of friendship, of being there for others, that type of thing. So then the other portion of that is, around isolation. So if you're isolated, then, because the community is going to help define
hmm
who you are as a man.
hmm
So if you're not in community, how can you be a man? How can you be masculine?
okay, okay. Hey, I got to answer, brother. I got to
Okay.
answer. To be a man is to be a is to incorporate the character traits of the hero. Okay, so a man makes sacrifices for others. A man perseveres. A man overcomes obstacles. A man doesn't make excuses. Okay, and not to say that your excuses aren't valid. Okay, but a man is accountable for his actions. A man looks toward the future. All right, a
Mm,
man. Yeah. So we're back to sacrifices. A man has
mm,
humility. A man realizes that with the hero, a hero never accomplishes their task alone. They always have assistance from some sort of guide, some sort of mentor. A
mhm,
man is someone who is willing to admit that they don't know where they're going. Okay, a
mhm,
man is
mhm,
someone who's willing to get off their horse and admit, I don't know where I'm going, I need help.
mhm,
Okay. So
mhm.
yeah, there you go. That's a man. That's a man.
Yeah. Well, great. I'm glad you went to
Yeah.
your strength around mythology. So
Yeah.
let's talk more about how you use myth in helping,
Okay.
young boys become their own
Yeah.
heroes.
Okay. Thanks. Make okay. Make sure you ask me too, man, about being black. Make sure you ask me about being a black man. Okay. And my first
Okay.
thoughts about that. Let's don't forget that. But I came upon myth. The importance of mythology when I went through that African-based rites of passage. Okay, was formally initiated. And through that, I was introduced to the importance of the ancestors, people who made sacrifices for us, and then also African spirituality. And that's where I was introduced to the work of Carl Jung. All right, and I was just blown away by Jung's concept of the collective unconscious and synchronicity and the phenomenology of self, and then mythology. So I was introduced to Joseph Campbell and mythology, and all these myths said the same thing for no matter where they were from. They all basically said the same thing. And then I got introduced to the work of Michael Meade. And so I read
Mm-hmm.
his book, Men in the Water of Life. And the first two myths dealt with the father-son relationship. And at the time, I was working at University of Akron with upper bound programs. So I was working, a lot of black males, high school students, middle school and high school students, preparing them for college. And so I read Michael Meade's book. It's like 7 or 8 different myths, but the first two myths deal with father and son relationships. He would tell a myth and give his interpretation of the myth. And so I read those, and I was just like, wow. It just helped me to understand so much of my life through a myth. So I'm saying I'm gonna start using this with the youth and adults I'm working with at University of Akron. And then what I found is that if you tell somebody directly they're doing something wrong, they become defensive. But if you tell them through a myth, it removes them from the situation and it allows them to look at the situation objectively. And that's when I started
Mm-hmm.
using, myths with urban youth. What, about 30
Mm-hmm.
years ago? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So then, so when you were teaching at University of Akron,
Well, no,
you were
I'm sorry.
already.
I wasn't teaching. I was just working with upper bound students, running
Oh,
groups
I
for
see. I
for,
see.
for, for parents, running monthly groups for parents, and working with urban youth.
Oh, I see. So had Alchemy started before
No,
then, or was
no,
this kind of
no,
genesis
no,
of
because
that?
that was about around that was about 1995, and then I didn't start Alchemy till 2004. Okay, but
Oh,
I
okay.
but I was using
Okay.
myth with the youth around, probably around 98, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, for me, I found part of I know part of your story, but um, you left a 15-year career to then pursue your education. And what I often come up against with not just black men, some women too. Women seem to be more amenable to saying, "Look, you need to you have a lot of good stuff here, but you need an education in some way to kind of tighten it up." So, but you went back, after working, and that struggle of doing your bachelor's over 50, over a long period of time, and then going to pursuing this degree in mythology, which is another. You talk about sacrifice. I mean, that should be your middle name. So can you tell us a little bit about that part of your own hero's journey?
Okay, thanks. I'm Akron, Ohio. I'm from Akron, Ohio. Uh, and Akron was, back when I was growing up, as the rubber capital of the world. So you had the headquarters of Goodyear, Goodrich, BF Goodrich, General Tire, Firestone. So I graduated high school on a Thursday, started working at Goodyear that following Monday. Okay, as a mail boy, just part time because I was gonna go to school full time. And then they offered me a job full time. So I went full time as a mail boy, which is as low as you could go. All right, low as you could go. And went to school in the evening. So like I say, it took me 15 years. I was in the mail room for 9 months, then went to advertising just as a mail boy in the advertising department for 5 years. And then did drafting for the last 9. And Goodyear offered separation letters, okay, but when they offered it the first time, I couldn't take it because I wasn't finished with school. They offered it a second time, I couldn't take it. I wasn't finished with school. That second time they offered it, I remember standing up at my desk and I said, if they offer this thing again, I'm gonna be in a position to take it. So I started taking 3 classes a semester, going to school in the evening. They offered it again. And I signed it. I signed it with because I was a move to New York. I was a move to New York City because my
Mhm.
sister was living in New York. So this was
Mhm.
1991, and the recession hit, and so I had turned down a graduate assistantship, okay, because I was a move to New York City. So then when I didn't move to New York City, it was my last week of work at Goodyear. I'm like, Can I cuss,
Mm,
man? It's okay for me to cuss?
mhm.
Okay. And
Well,
I
I'm a
was like,
therapist, so I'm going to say
okay,
express yourself.
okay. So I was like, shit. I only got a
Mhm,
week, to go. So I called Dr. Fry and asked what that graduate assistantship still available. I didn't even know what a graduate assistantship was. Okay. So I took it and went back to school to get my master's in I wanted to get my master's in counseling, but it's just gonna take me too long because I took like about an 80% cut in pay to leave Goodyear for the graduate assistantship. So went back and got my master's in technical education with emphasis in guidance and counseling. Then went back to school to get then I got a job at Akron U with Upward Bound. And then I went back to get my master's in counseling. Okay, completed all the coursework. All I had to do was my internship and comps and quit because I'd only been in school about 19. I'd been in school already for about 19 years in the evening. And then I went to that rights, and then with the rights, like I said, I got introduced to mythology and Joseph Campbell. I was 38 years old. I'm 67 now. I was 38 years old, and I was staring out my window, and I was reading the Power of Myth, and his one sentence changed my entire life. His sentence was like, "When you follow your bliss, doors are open where you thought there'd be no doors." And I just asked myself, what was my bliss? What did I want to do? Not what could I do? What did I want to do? And my exact words, because I had read Mead's book, and I'm doing the myth with the parents and the dogs, the parents and the youth. And my exact words were, "I want to play my drum and tell mythological stories." And so the internet had just came out. I asked secretary to find me a school because I knew I would need credentials. And I asked secretary to find me a school to offer a PhD in mythology. She couldn't find one because the internet had just come out. Uh, Months later, so I just said, forget it. Months later, a friend of mine came in, Bruce Webb. He threw a magazine on my desk. It's right back here. I still have it. It was Common Boundaries. I'm flipping through. He said, Kwame has some interesting ads and articles in here. I'm flipping through it. I see a school in Santa Barbara, California, Pacifica Graduate Institute that offers a master's and PhD in mythological studies. And I'm going through this thing. And so then I remember getting on my phone and calling the school to have them send me a catalog. They sent me a catalog. Man, this is a long story, but I'm about to end it. And I'm looking through this catalog. I got that catalog right there too. All right. And I'm like, this is all the stuff I'm already reading. But it was the school is in California. Here again, I'm in Akron, Ohio, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday once a month. I'm like, I can't do that. I got a 4-year-old son. So anyway, uh, I just started paying, attention to my dreams and different synchronistic events. And hey, man, I ended up flying back and forth to California uh, once a month for 10 months out the year for 3 years to get my master's and PhD in mythological studies. And people are like,
mhm,
what in the are you going to do with a
mhm,
degree in mythology?
mhm, mhm,
Okay.
mhm,
And then, hey, and that's why people can't tell me that there's spiritual forces out there, brother. Okay.
mhm,
That makes things happen. But the thing is, you got to, first off, you have to make the leap. When you leap, the net shall appear.
mhm.
Okay. So yeah,
So
man,
I'm,
that's a
I'm going,
long story, brother. That's how I got into it.
but I'm going to go back to one interesting part of your story for me. You left a job that you already had. They didn't fire you.
No,
I
no.
would guess you could have, you know,
I could have
you're
retired from there, brother.
67. You could have retired from that
I
job.
could have retired from there at 47 years old with 30 years, man. Okay. Yeah.
So what was so pressing for you to
Man.
leave?
uh, hey, I use a lot of quotes. They say the space for what you want is filled already with what you settle for instead. Okay. And I
Mm,
just knew that corporate environment was not for me. All right. All
mhm.
right. I'm gonna back up, Frederick, before we
Sure.
forget. You're talking about being black. My earliest images of childhood, watching the black and white TV, and we were colored then. We walk, I'm watching this TV. We walking down the street, and they got the water hoses and the dogs and the police
Mm,
hitting them with the nightsticks, and I'm like, why are they doing this? These people just walking down the street, okay? And I'm like, and I noticed the only difference was the color of their skin. And here again, I'm a
mm,
child, so nobody explained this to me. And then
mm,
on TV, everything I saw, people of color, we were butlers, slaves, clowns. Here again, I was born in 1958. So I
Mm-hmm.
really internalized that we were less than due to the color of our skin. Um, so like I said, I really internalized that. And then being a mail boy at Goodyear, starting as low as you go. So even
Mm-hmm.
even at 67, and that's why I was kind of smirking when you said, being a man. I'm still trying to be a man, because
Mm.
even at 67, man, I'm still insecure, brother.
Yeah,
Even with
I
all
hear
the
you.
education and
Hmm.
alchemy, I'm still insecure, man, about being
Hmm.
black. Still insecure,
Yeah,
brother.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of a daily a daily occurrence, even now in 2025. I have memories of those, kind of a vision of myself of, you know, uh, when I first went into grade school, kindergarten. I think I must have been a kindergarten student. In those days, you could walk to school by yourself. You didn't have to worry
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
And that, I lived in a very Irish Italian neighborhood
Mm,
because, and here is the thing about history for me. I didn't understand all these dynamics until I was much older. That my family was, they were blockbusters. They were, this we were part of
mm,
that red line kind of thing, and this was the backlash from the working class Irish, the working class Italians. And the thing I can remember that kind of, it's almost like a shock when I awakened in some way, was looking at these, white boys screaming at me, as I'm going to school. So that the picture we going to school is like, oh, okay, we're going to school. And but the thing that you said, um, no one told me about this.
mhm, mhm,
There was, here's a heads up. This might happen because of this. And I find that it's kind of a trend amongst my mother. She's 99 now.
Wow.
She has a
Wow.
my aunt, her older sister, is
Wow.
103. So and
Mm,
they came out of 11 children,
mhm,
and no one said anything.
mhm,
No one said anything.
mhm.
There's no stories. No, no one talks about being of at least my on both my mother and my father's sides. There's 10 on my father's side. My last living, uh, aunt on my father's side just turned 100 this year.
Mm,
No one talked about the South. No one talked about their hardship. No one. And
mm,
when you question them, oh, you don't need to know that. I mean, it's
yeah.
and then we are kind of um, perpetuating this in some ways around what we don't know about our history. There's such a big absence. And, for me, I clock it around 71 to now, but right around the war on drugs. We lose 2, 3 generations right at that moment.
Mhm,
They're incarcerated, they die in the streets, particularly with the men. And now we have, young boys of that era who are becoming men, who
mm,
which prompts my question. Well, who taught you how to do that? How did you become this man that you think you are?
mm,
And did you finish? When did you
mm.
finish becoming one? You're saying, well, I'm still becoming one. 67 years old. You learn, oh, the more I know, the more I realize how much I don't
Yeah,
know.
Lulu. Mhm,
You
mhm.
know, so I appreciate you sharing that part of yourself. It's always a fascinating story, that you go from you know s- you know male boy to you know running your program and spreading this. And I'm sure, um how old were you when you were this male boy? 18?
18. Yeah.
18? So now you
18.
must look at other 18-year-olds and what they're, they don't even probably have that opportunity to be a male to be a male
No,
boy. I mean,
no.
those opportunities are just evaporated to even
Mhm,
step into a corporate situation. So you're kind of stuck. So,
mhm.
what do you feel that we need to do to create? My thing is to create something that has not existed yet. I'm very much into look. The old ways worked then. Maybe we need to establish some new ways to look into the future. What would you say that we could use to move Black men? And I say Black men, but uh, you know, fundamentally, we're also talking about Black women.
Mhm,
I'm
mhm.
often saying that men come into therapy because of women. They
Mm.
don't always come by themselves. They come because women uh, might do a few things to get to coax them into to therapy. But um, we're having a little bit of a disconnect over the last couple of years between women who are advancing, which is very very good, and uh, and men who are kind of languishing. And there's a lot of data on that, which I talk about on my in my workshops. But what is it that you are trying to do um, with this generation of men? And you've touched many generations of young boys who have become men. What is something that can move us forward?
Okay, and thanks. I'm gonna speak on what worked for me. Okay, you talking about your mother? My father's 99, so my parents were married for like 72 years. Okay,
Hmm.
before my mother passed away. But what's worked for me here again is the mythology. Okay, and here again, these myths have been around thousands of years. So there's like a roadmap. Okay, for us to navigate our way through life. And so what I found is that the first myth we do at the youth in sixth grade, and we when we started, we had to use sixth grade to 12th. Now we pretty much have them just sixth to eighth grade. But the first myth we do is the water of life. And in this myth, the king is sick. And when the king is sick, the entire village is sick. So he has three sons. These three sons sitting on the castle steps and they crying because their father, the king, is sick. Well, this old man walks by him. And because he sees them crying, he stops. All right. So in that myth, we talk about if you sitting on those castle steps acting like everything is cool when it's not. And that's what we do as men a lot of times. We sit and act like
Hmm.
everything's cool when it's
Hmm.
not. Okay, so that old man gonna keep walking because he think everything's cool. But if you crying, that's a sign that something is wrong. So that
Hmm.
old man, he stops, and he lets them know that he has a cure. Okay, it's the water of life, but it's difficult to get to. All right, and so that's one of the first things, man. We got to stop acting like everything is cool when it's not.
Hmm.
All right, and then also in that
Well,
myth, the
we have a lot of language around that. You
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
um,
yeah. That
I'm
whole cool
cool. I'm all
pose
right.
thing,
Right.
man.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Bullshit. Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Okay. And then also in that myth, the youngest son, he doesn't know where he's going. Okay. So the older two sons, they try to go in search of water life, but they're arrogant and rude to the dwarf, blah, blah, blah. But the youngest son, when he comes upon the dwarf, he gets off his horse and admits that he does not know where he's going. And when he admits that he does not know where he's going, the dwarf gives him pretty much everything he needs. Okay. So that's the one thing, man. We just teaching people to be honest about themselves, and hey, what's ailing you? He who conceals his disease cannot expect to be cured. Okay, so you got to let people know when something is wrong, and then you got to go and get that assistance. All right, and when you do that, then pretty much things fall into place. But to me, it's all about getting to know yourself better. Okay, that whole Jungian piece about about your dark side and the anima, the
Hmm.
animus,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
trickster, bringing all those aspects of your psyche into one, that whole process of individuation. But it starts with, to me, it starts that admitting, man, that you need help. Hey, I've been in therapy 8 years, man. Same dude. And it wasn't because a woman, sent me there. Hell, just for me, being honest with myself, I need some help, man. Okay.
Well, yeah. Well, I that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
At least in my practice, I have men who are like that.
Yeah.
There's something that was vexing me, and I need to talk to someone about it.
Yeah.
So that's perfect. Look, we're out of time for today,
Okay,
but
brother.
you are you on the list. You already on the list to come back.
Okay. Okay. Just let me know. Here again, I appreciate
I
it.
will
Let
do
me
that,
know.
and I really
Okay.
appreciate
Yeah.
you being the
Thank you.
first guest. My
Thank you.
first time, sometimes it's kind of sketchy when people do something for the first time. I'm glad you trusted me enough to come on and do this for the first time.
Okay.
And when
Uh,
you're in New York,
okay.
you cannot be in New York and
Okay,
not
brother.
contact
Okay.
me.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. You
All
got it.
right.
Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Thank you for what you're doing, Frederick. Thank you
All
so
right.
much,
Thank
brother.
you. Thank you for what
Okay.
you're doing.
All right.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you for listening. And remember, whether you're navigating struggle or stepping into the unknown, you're not alone. This is for men. This is about men. This has been On Being Black Men, a blueprint for power and purpose with Fredrick Bush. You can find On Being Black Men on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and at icbmail.com. That's icbmale.com.
If you or someone you love is in emotional pain, help is just 3 digits away. Call or text 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It's free, confidential, and available 24/7. That's 988. Stay safe, stay grounded, and keep building.